Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever heard of the Osborne Effect before? It's the idea where a company will announce a product prematurely and cause a sharp decline in sales for currently available products. This effect can cripple a lot of smaller companies that need constant revenue to stay afloat. And this is exactly what happened in 1983 to the company that would coin the term, the Osborne Computer Corporation. And so in today's video, we'll be covering the downfall of Osborne and the computer that caused it. Let's get into it. Many years before we had the laptop, we had what was called the Luggable. The Luggable name was certainly accurate when you imagine a computer weighing 28 pounds and coming equipped with a full leather handle. But in the days before cheap LCDs, computers like these were Osborne's bread and butter. Starting with their first computer, the Osborne 1 in 1981, they made the first commercially successful portable computer. Technology moved very quickly in this day, and despite the computer's success, people wanted more. So when news of the Executive came out in 1982, sales for the One dropped off a cliff in anticipation, even though the Executive wouldn't release for around a year later. This destroyed Osborne's cash flow in a fast-moving market. The Executive had a larger 7-inch screen, double the RAM, support for CPM Plus, and double-density half-height floppy drives, all in the same case, while keeping things like the keyboard and other ports the same. The Executive was a step up in just about every way. In order to recover lost funds from falling Osborne 1 sales, the Executive had to launch at a price of around $2,495 approximately $7,877 in 2024 money. As a result, the Executive is estimated to have sold a tenth of the amount that the One sold and brought the company to bankruptcy in September of 1983. But what's the computer like today? Before we answer that, there's a few things to take care of, starting of course with a cleanup. With the cleaning done, it was time to open it up and address the other major issue. And so while I take this apart, let me tell you a little bit about REFA capacitors. REFA capacitors are epoxy encapsulated metal paper filter capacitors found in many old electronics power supplies. These capacitors slowly break down and crack over years of being in storage, absorbing humidity, and then exploding after being taken back out and powered up again, often releasing a ton of smoke in the process. While having an exploding capacitor would make good YouTube content, I'd rather not have my room smell like smoke for a couple of days. If it isn't obvious by the footage, taking apart this computer is kind of a pain in the butt. Flipping over a 28-pound brick over and over again just to take some screws apart is certainly not fun. But I got the power supply out in the end, so let's take it over to the bench and get these capacitors out of there. I had preemptively bought a capacitor pack from Console 5 ahead of this video in case any of the capacitors here were bad, but having a quick look at them, I think they look okay, so I'll just go ahead and replace the REFAs. And the first one comes out. It is worth quickly noting that even though I keep calling these REFA capacitors, REFA is just the brand that makes these capacitors. Technically, these are Class X safety capacitors. Here you can get a better look at the cracks in the REFA capacitor. This thing definitely would have exploded at some point. And so now we'll get the new replacement soldered in. There's two other smaller ones on the board, so we'll get those replaced too. And that's it for the power supply. Since we have the motherboard out, let's have a look at it and some of the big chips on it. First up is our processor, a Zilog Z80A clocked at 4 MHz. Next we have two Motorola 6821 PAA chips. A couple of curious ROM chips up by the speaker. And some more ROM chips over on the other side of the board. Not sure what all these are used for. Underneath this board is the memory, which I don't really want to take off right now since it seems like some of the standoffs are broken. Though underneath it we can see there's a couple more chips. I can't really make out what they are though. Next I turn my attention to the floppy drives. These probably haven't been looked at in quite a long time, so I'm sure they need a little bit of greasing. I've seen enough people refurbish these online, but this is going to be my first time doing one myself. The first step is to get in there with a Q-tip and clean off any grime on the rails. These look pretty clean though, and not a whole lot came off on the Q-tip. Next is to get at the head with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. And add some white lithium grease to the rails, making sure to move the head back and forth a couple of times to spread the grease out. Feels pretty good to me. We'll also put just one drop of sewing machine oil on the top spindle here, just to help it move. And finally a quick check of the belt, just to make sure everything all looks good here. And now it's time to put it all back together. I didn't show taking out the floppy drives, so you can kind of see putting them back in here is a bit of a challenge. There's two tabs on each side that clip it into the plastic chassis. I'll get into this more in a moment, but you have to be careful about this shield here covering the motherboard. You have to make sure that it doesn't fold over on itself and cause any shorts on the board. Which you can kind of see here in the bottom left corner of the board. I already had a bit of a fold over. More on this in a moment. A good check I like to do is to just check the power rails to see if there's any shorts. I was a little confused about the ohmage of the plus 12 volt rail, but it turns out this is normal. However, one thing that can cause a short on the 12 volt rail is that shield. If it folds over like this, you probably got a short on your 12 volt and the computer won't start up. Ask me how I know. Now to give it a power on test before I fully put it all back together. Apologies for the camera focus here, but you can see it is booting and prompting a disk. One cool thing about these floppy drives is that they can automatically detect and use disks formatted for other systems. This is pretty uncommon for the day when a lot of systems use their own proprietary formats. I look through my disks for something that's bootable. It takes a couple of tries, but I find the CPM boot disk. And just like that, we're booted into CPM+. Here's where I'll also say, I know nothing about CPM, despite owning multiple books about it. I guess I'll have to give those a read one day. After loading CPM, I was able to load the word processor WordStar. but you can see here that it's a little bit difficult to see some of the text. More on this in a minute. I will say, I gotta love that Osborne logo, in a nice clear, bright amber. Speaking of CPM Books, here's everything that I got with the machine when I bought it. A book on mastering the CPM operating system, with a really great cover. The reference guide for the Osborne Executive gives you a lot of details about the system and system specs. Not to be confused with the Osborne Executive guides, separate books with a little bit more detail. A booklet full of the approved software for the system. This is where I got the boot disks, WordStar, SuperCalc, and more. There was a second box of floppies that mainly contained backups of the other approved software. Though some of the logos on these disks here are very curious. This is the logo for CN Rail here in Canada. And curiously, among these CPM disks, we had one copy of IBM DOS version 1.1. Along with the CN disks, we had one other sticker here that alluded to the machine's previous life. A sticker showing it was Ontario Hydro Electrical approved by special inspection. Seems like this computer was used in an industrial setting of some kind. Like I said, a lot of these disks appear to be backups of the main approved software, so I don't think there's really any sensitive data on here. Moving along to trying out some of the software, we'll go back to WordStar for a moment. This would have been your standard affair word processor for the machine. Here you can see the words actually showing up this time. It turns out I had the brightness and contrast turned down too low in the last shot. Next program is SuperCalc. This would have been your standard spreadsheet software. Even though I imagine these programs to be pretty simple, I still had a hard time actually figuring out how to do anything on them. Along with a few others. Here was one I found pretty interesting. A program called Personal Perl, which I believe is a terminal emulator program. I later learned that the Osborne Executive can actually emulate a couple of different terminals, including the VT100 and the ADM-3A, along with a few others. Slight freeze from my floppy drive aside, this is a pretty cool welcome screen. Unfortunately, I couldn't load the demonstration for this program because I think my floppy drive is acting up again. I'll have to take it apart again someday to figure out what's going on with it. This became very clear when I tried to load the next piece of software, because this is the closest thing I could imagine to a computer having a seizure. The entire time this was happening, the computer was beeping at random moments, as if it was completing instructions somehow. If I hadn't caught this on camera, I don't think anybody would believe me. Of course, at some point I had to hit the reset button and give it a try again. And this time it actually worked, booting the disk I intended. Although I'm not 100% sure what it was intended for, and I couldn't really figure out what to do with it again. So if anybody has more details about this piece of software, let me know. I did figure out how to get to the point of changing the time and date, so I figured I'd give it a try to see if it's year 2000 compatible. Which it looks like it is. Good job, University of California. Having looked at the software, there was a couple other things about this computer that I wanted to try out. Namely the video out. There's this external video here and a composite out. Let's try that composite. Here I've got a little black and white Sony security monitor over composite. While it does display pretty clearly, it's definitely cropped. I did try this out on a couple other TVs and got the same result, so it's not unique just to this one. See again that I didn't have the brightness and contrast turned up to be able to see all the letters. Here's a bit more of a direct demonstration on the Osborne's built-in screen. It's easy to have it set so you can only see half the words. about that external video port for a second. This is not analog video like the composite out, but instead digital TTL video. And when hooked up to another monitor, like pictured, it'll actually turn off the power to the main internal CRT. This is one of few pictures I could find online of someone actually using this, and it's connected to an official Osborne display, so I'm not sure if this is compatible with a regular MDA monitor, but hopefully I can find out one day. The last thing to take a look at was this fan. Let me give you a taste of what it sounds like. Yikes, not only is it loud, it has a really annoying tone to it. And so I thought about replacing it. This isn't something to be taken lightly, because you want to make sure you get a fan that's going to push enough air to cool it down. It's not just all about noise. And also have the proper connector to interface with the computer. So let's swap it out of its chassis. One thing to point out is that this is actually an intake fan. It'll push air through the system and out near the front where the executive badge is. It also should have an air filter on it, but you can see this one is long disintegrated. I won't be replacing that. Of course, because this is an intake fan, you have to pay attention to the orientation so you don't make it an exhaust fan by accident. One thing is that I don't know if this new fan is rated to the same CFM as the old fan. That's going to be important for pushing air through the system, so that's something I'll keep an eye out for. Let's see how quiet this new one is. Now that's much better. It's going to make using the system a whole lot better. And there we have it, the Osborne Executive. So what are my thoughts on this computer after working through it and testing out some software? Overall, I really like it. Even though the screen is still smaller than a lot of the competitors out there, I still thought it was pretty clear, and I enjoy the amber. It's a lot easier on the eyes than things like white or green in my opinion. While the keyboard isn't mechanical, it still doesn't feel too bad. And truly how compact everything is on the front makes everything pretty easy to get to. There's no cords or ports around the back that you need to worry about aside from the power cord. One of the only real complaints I have about it is kind of how difficult it is to open it up and work on things. I certainly don't look forward to opening it up to work on those floppy drives again. For the future, I think I might end up putting a GoTech in, or figuring out how to load programs over the modem. But that's for another video. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.